To the mother who still thinks about that hobby, the one you haven't touched since becoming a mom, I have a question for you. Do you still call yourself that? I don't know if I can call myself a potter anymore. I haven't touched clay in years, but there was a time when that word felt like it belonged to me. My mom is a pottery teacher. When I was growing up, I'd help teach her class. People would sit down at the wheel for the very first time, their feet kicking as hard as they could, trying to force the clay into the center. And I'd lean over and say, "Stop kicking for a second. Take a breath. Lean your hands gently against the clay. Now exhale." If they pushed unevenly, the clay would start doing what we called the hula. It would wobble and dance and refuse to cooperate. But the funny thing would happen. The moment they relaxed and actually inhaled and exhaled with the clay almost seemed to listen. And I loved that. I loved being a potter. I loved taking off all my rings before I sat down, looping them onto my keychain so they wouldn't get lost. I loved the feeling of the wet clay slipping through my fingers and washing it off with the hot water after class. I loved my jeans so covered in dried clay they could practically stand up on their own or leave a trail. I loved staying late into the night just to see if I could push the walls of a bowl a little higher. Sometimes they collapsed, sometimes they surprised me. I loved making something beautiful and then squishing it flat again with a squish of water and clay just to see what else it wanted to become. I thought that's what I loved about pottery. Then I moved to the desert to 29 Palms. I didn't know anyone, only a few neighbors that we met. So I did what everyone does. I Googled pottery near me, and I found this little studio. And on her fence, giant letters, ART. I knew I was home. I walked in one day and I joined a group called the Mudslingers, and something happened that I still think about. Nobody there knew me. Nobody knew where I came from. Nobody knew my story. But I sat down at the wheel and suddenly I wasn't a new girl anymore. I was a potter. I had carried that part of myself across hundreds of miles. People would glance over, some were still learning, and I'd help them later center their clay. I'd hear myself saying the same words my mom had taught me. Take a breath, the clay is listening. It felt like I had found myself again. That winter in the desert, I made a whole series of bowls inspired by the desert sunsets. Soft pinks, warm yellows, dusty oranges, lavenders that only seemed to exist for about 5 minutes every evening as the sun was setting. One night, I carried 5 of them outside. The desert night was freezing, but the stars were so bright. I built a fire, as we usually did in the desert, and one by one, I put the bowls into the flames, just to see what would happen. They popped, they cracked, they exploded. My neighbors thought, "Oh, why are you doing that? They were so beautiful." But honestly, I just wanted to know if I could let something beautiful go. I wanted to see what would become. I wanted to not care. I wanted to become the kind of person who wasn't afraid to make something and then lose it. By the morning, they'd cracked, shattered. I left them there, and we built more fires on top of them. The ash covered the clay. The clay became part of the earth again, as it does. And sometimes I wonder what I would have happened if I'd brought them inside. But I don't regret it, because I don't think those bowls were ever the point. And now, I'm a mother, and somewhere along the way, I stopped calling myself a potter. Not because I stopped loving clay. Life just slowly filled my hands with other things. Tiny socks, snack cups, babies, little hands, bedtime stories, endlessly cleaning up toys. I kept telling myself, I'll come back to pottery when life slows down. But life hasn't slowed down, and I feel a little bit stuck in time. I I look at my boys and I realize they're growing every single day. New words, new shoes, new jokes, new skills, new pieces of who they were and becoming. New pieces of who they are, and I'm pouring myself into them. And I loved watching it. But quietly, I'm wondering, am I still becoming too? I think that's why I'm here today. Not because I need to become the woman I was before motherhood. I don't. She brought me here. But I also don't believe my best years are behind me. Maybe they're waiting for me right here at this table with this clay for 10 minutes. I don't think I really miss pottery. I think I miss the feeling of becoming, of making something. Maybe that's what creating has always been, not making beautiful things, but reminding ourselves that we're still growing, we're still changing, we're still becoming, we're still seeing life differently. So, to the mother who thinks about that hobby, maybe this week, don't ask yourself, do I have enough time? How can I make space for this? What do I want to make? Ask yourself, who might I become if I begin again?